Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. My name is Marvin Jenkins, and I'm the coordinator for the Women's Business Center for Maryland Capital Enterprises. And we're a nonprofit organization, and we assist women entrepreneurs who are either starting a new business or expanding their existing business. Uh, we service the Eastern Shore of Maryland, Baltimore City, Baltimore County, Anne Arundel County, and we offer a lot of educational programs like the one you're on today here. And we offer one-on-one counseling, one-on-one consulting, and we also offer loan assistance. And with the loan assistance, that includes business plans and cash flow projections. We have offices both here in Salisbury, Maryland, and in Baltimore. So reach out to us if you need any assistance. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rosalind Davis for the MBE, DBE, and SBE workshop part 2. And we appreciate everything Rosalind does for us. She spends a lot of time doing some of these webinars for us. So we appreciate her and her expertise. And with that, Rosalind, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right, Marvin. Hey, thank you everyone for joining today's webinar. If you were with us with part 1, thank you for joining us for part 2. If not, you're just joining us, you'll still get a lot out of this as well, because you can go back and look at the recording for part 1. As Marvin said, I am Rosalind Davis. I am the president and CEO of Rhoda Business Solutions, a management consulting firm that specializes in business processes improvement, strategic engagements, business administration, organizational development training. I am a certified woman, veteran, and minority-owned small business located here in the Washington, D.C. metro area. Also MDOT certified, MBE, DBE, and SBE. So that kind of qualifies me to provide this training for you today. I always want to thank the Maryland Capital Enterprise Women Business Center for hosting this platform to provide this training to so many small businesses who want to get certified with MDOT and be able to position their company to get those set-aside awards. But this would not be possible without Ms. Kamalia Blunt of Lord & Tucker Management Consultant. She was the one who made that connection between myself and Lisa Twilley, the director of the Women's Business Center. My disclaimer, the screenshots that I use today in this presentation are actual screen captures from MDOT certification online application, but I want to tell you that the views and opinions expressed during this webinar are the views of mine, and in no way are the views and opinions of the government or any other entity. Now, if you haven't done so already, I recommend that you, in the top right of your corner, switch to the standard view, and it'll enhance your visibility of the application screenshots. So with that, I'm going to move on to the agenda, and I will take breaks throughout to stop to see if there are any questions. You can post those in the chat. Marvin will see them and he will present those questions. I am going to go off camera because you're not interested in seeing me. You're interested in what's on the slides. Can we have everyone mute their mic if they are not presenting, please? All right, so this is part 2. So part 2, we're going to talk about, we're going to give you a quick recap of what happened in part 1. We're going to talk about the ACDBE certification, which is the Airport Concessions DBE certification. I'm going to also talk about the required documentations. Hey, we have an open mic. If you could, please mute yourself if you're not speaking so that everyone can hear the presentation. Juliet, can you please mute your mic? Thank you. So also, I'm going to go over the mandatory list of documents that you must submit with your application. It's very important that you answer all those questions and also upload all those documentations to move your application forward. But then there's also a list of, if applicable, documents that if they don't apply to your business, you do not need to upload them. And I will show you how to get past that and get your application moving forward. And then I'll wrap up with some key takeaways, some conclusions. Again, if there's any questions during out this process, I will take breaks and ask those questions at that time, or you can wait to the end, whichever you prefer. So I want to remind everyone that there is no cost to apply for MDOT certifications. You can do this online yourself. You do not have to pay anyone to do this for you. It is a 4-step process. The first step is application submission. So that's you submitting your application through their online portal. The second step is an investigation to include an on-site, maybe even a virtual visit and an interview. They just want to make sure that you are in business and you have a valid office, whether that's a home office or a commercial office. And then step 3 is an evaluation to see if you meet the eligibility requirements. And we'll go through those eligibility requirements during this presentation. And then the final step is the determination. You'll get a decision letter whether your application has been approved or denied. If it has been denied, you'll have a reason as well. This whole process takes about 3 to 4 months for MDOT to render a decision. I will tell you, your application will sit for about 3 months and you think there's no traction happening, but they will get to it. You can follow up using your application number, but it will look like there's nothing happening for about 3 months. Okay, during part 1, we went through these particular sections, and as you can see, they are green right now. So section 1 was the basic information, your name, your phone number, your email address, and then also your prior, where you determine which certification you were applying for, your business profile. This is where you enter your North American Industry Classification Codes, which is your NAICS codes. This tells the government what products or services you offer. You also talked about the number and type of employees, so part-time, full-time employees, your gross business receipts. Now, this is a mandatory question, and also it'll be a mandatory document that you will have to upload if it applies. And then relationships, it talks about your ownership in another business, maybe a subsidiary, et cetera, or if there is someone that has ownership over your business. And then the owner information, it asks about the year that you owned your company, what percentage of the company do you own, and how did you acquire the business? Did you start it yourself? Was it gifted to you? But those questions will be asked as well. And then how much did you invest? Did you put in a lump sum, or are you just basically using startup cash? And then the personal net worth. This is a very important document and question that you'll go through the application, and I'll go through that in very much detail because it has to be notarized. And then we also talked about the officers and board of directors. You could list yourself as both positions if you are a company of one and you are also the officer and the board of directors. There's no fallacy in doing that. Your management personnel, you need to include your duties and responsibilities as running the company. Your resume needs to talk about you are the owner of the company, you have the strategic direction of the company. Those types of things need to be in your resume to show that you provide the direction for that company. And then inventory, it talks about your business equipment and vehicles. And if you have an office space, let's say, for instance, a daycare that rents a commercial space for their daycare facility. And in financials, this is your banking information, perhaps your sources of loans. You need to make sure that this information matches your personal net worth statement. And I will go into detail about that. And then licenses and contracts. The licenses that they're referring to is like plumbers, electricians, and then the contracts is your 3 largest contracts. And if you don't have any contracts yet, this would not apply, and you would leave that question blank or you would put a 0. Now, unlike if you're familiar with the System for Award Management, which is sam.gov at the federal level, where you can't skip around, for MDOT certification application, you can complete any section. You can go out of order. You don't have to complete each section step by step, which is a good thing as you go through and complete your application. Okay, airport concession, ACDBE. Again, part 1 was covered with sections 1 through 4. So this last section here is the airport concession certification. This section has 5 mandatory questions. So let's go into a review of those questions. So it's asked, the first question is, if you are applying for the ACDB certification, you will respond accordingly and then hit submit to move on to the required documents section. You also want to make sure that this is something that you want to do, participate in airport concessions. It is not mandatory. If you don't want to, you can just not apply for the ACDBE certification. But in this process here, this is where you're going to spend the most of your time gathering the documentation for your application. And then the final question on this particular slide is the last question relates to joint ventures. So if you have a joint venture, say you team with another company, you actually have a joint venture agreement, you would put that in the documentation section when it comes time to upload it. Are there any questions before we get into the required documents?
There were not really any questions. We had someone asking about the slides, but the slides will not be sent with the link to the recording, but you will have the recording. So, but that was the only question.
All right. Thank you. So here is the list of required documents. I would recommend, based on your company structure, that you would look at which checklists apply to you, because there's sole proprietorship, there's LLC, which is limited liability corporation, there's partnerships, and there's also corporations. So download and review the applicable checklist to make sure that you have that particular documentation, and or you can answer those questions. Now, listed here is the common documentation that you will need regardless of the certification. So whether or not you're applying for MBE, DBE, SBE, or ACDBE. You'll also notice on this slide that there are 2 documents that have to be notarized. I highly recommend that you wait until you are about to upload your application to get those documents notarized, because if you have a change to those documents and you have them notarized, then you're gonna have to go back and get them notarized again. Now, MDOT's preference is for the applicants to submit all your documentation on their online portal. There's no faxing, there's no email. Everything is done through their online portal. And if you are certified in your home state as a DBE, ACDBE, another state, you do not have to complete this application for other states. So you want to make sure that you ask your state uniform certification process about their interstate certificate process if there's reciprocity. So that's something that's recent change to where you can have reciprocity in another state and not have to complete the application again. But going through these documents, the affidavit of certification is basically saying that you certify that you are a MBE or DBE participant. Your state business registration documents. This is your standards or your good standing with the state of Maryland. It could also be your articles of organization. It could also be your board of director meetings, just something that shows that you have a state business registered. Resumes. This is the resumes for anyone who has ownership of the company, and that will be part of the application process. Proof of citizenship. This is a government issued photo ID. It could be a passport. It could be a driver's license. Personal net worth. This is another notarized document. I'll go into more detail with that one. And then you're also going to need 3 to 5 years of your personal federal tax return. And if you've just started, let's say this year, last year, and you do not have 3 to 5 years, I will show you how to get past that so that your application can keep moving forward. You're also going to need 5 years of your business federal tax returns. And again, if you don't have 5 years, I'll show you how to get through that. You will need a bank signature authorization form or letter. So from your bank saying that you have a business account set up at that bank on their letterhead to include the name of the business and the name of the person who's authorized to sign documents and checks for that business. Your vehicle title or registration and insurance, if this is used for your business. So if you have your POVs that you use for your business as well, you will need your vehicle title and or registration along with insurance requirement. And then the licenses and contracts. Again, these licenses they're asking for are plumbers, electricians, perhaps it's a daycare facility owner. Those types of licenses, what they're asking for here. And then any contracts, your top 3 contracts that you may have. So going into a little bit more detail about these documents. Again, as you can see at the top, there are those 2 again that must be notarized. So you would download those particular documents, fill them in, and then get them notarized. So as you could see, even though it says fax, that does not apply anymore. They have to be attached. So just keep that in mind. They'll have to be attached through their online portal. So going through this list, I will just cover the ones that we have not covered. The proof of good standing, that is your Maryland business state registration. You can get that proof of good standing. I will show you how to get that document if you don't have that for each year that you're in business. It is a document that you get every year. And it normally occurs after April 15th when you pay your business license registration. And then your articles of organization, it's another Maryland documentation that you'll need. And then the original and amended operating agreements, you'll need that as well. And then your profit sharing agreement. If that particular document does not apply to you, then you would just upload a letter, put your business name on it, along with your application number, and says profit sharing agreements does not apply to your business. And then you would just attach that document. It could be a Word document or it could be a PDF. Mandatory document, here again is the affidavit of certification, DBE. Must be notarized. And I keep harping on the fact that it must be notarized because your application will get kicked back if those 2 documents, this one and the personal net worth, are not notarized. So you would answer those questions that I circled here in red, and then get your document notarized. Your personal net worth. Here, there are instructions on the form once you download it to tell you what needs to go into each block. What is considered loans, what's considered real estate, life insurance, on down the line. The key thing on this particular document is what I've circled here, your net worth. This is the number that when you look at the questions that were asked, like during part 1 of this training, there was a question that asked, what is your net worth? And if you recall, if you were part of the part 1 session, you would just enter a number there until you get this final number on this document, because those two numbers have to match. This was back on section 3 when it asked about the majority owner's information. Those two numbers must match. I can't stress that enough. If they don't match, it's going to hold up your application. For your business and your personal taxes, they want a wet ink signature. They do not want the electronically signed document. So just keep that in mind. You will have to print off your 1040 and upload the form 8879 with your wet signature. The proof of good standing status with SStat. Again, these are annual filings that are due no later than April 15th of each year. The cost is about $40. Even though you may apply in advance, you still have to pay that expedited fee. There's just no way around it. The certificate will be available for immediate download if everything checks out. The common reasons that a business is not in good standing, it could be that you are missing your annual report or your personal property tax return. It could be also that you failed to file your annual, but it could also be that there's a monetary penalty that results from late filing or an annual report. It could also be an issue with the Maryland Office of Comptroller. Or the Maryland Department of Labor, or a check or some other form of payment that was made to Maryland was dishonored, or not having an active resident agent. You can be your own resident agent, but you have to list that in your application. So these are just some general reasons why your company may not be in good standing with Maryland. Now, this is what a proof of good standing certificate looks like. After you pay the $40, you'll get your certificate almost automatically. All you have to do is just download it. And I recommend saving that to your desktop so that you'll have easy access to upload it when the time comes. Proof of citizen, here's a list of some acceptable documentation. Again, your passport, it could be a birth certificate, it could be driver's license with the photo ID, permanent resident card, naturalization certificate, or another form of government issued ID. The bank authorization form, again, it must have your bank name, your business name, and the person that is authorized to sign checks for the company. So it depends on your banking institution. They may call it a bank authorization letter. Some may call it a signature card. But regardless, it needs to have your business name, your name, if you're the person that's authorized to sign checks. Proof of contributions. So this could be your state business registration receipt. So when you pay the $300 that says, I want to start a business in the state of Maryland, it could be that receipt. It could be your receipt of good standing. It could be your domain name receipt. So if you went out and purchased a domain name for your business, it could be that receipt. It could be a county system receipt that shows that you're using an accounting system for your business. And or it could be your EIN, which is your employee identification number letter that you get from the IRS. Now, the resumes for all officers or officers or owners of the firm and key personnel. So anyone that you list on the app that's part of your application process, you need to have a resume for each individual to talk about their roles and responsibilities in the company. This is where I would highly recommend that in the application, there's particular language that talks about management of personnel, sets policy and direction, makes purchasing decision, supervises field operations. Those are all key words that are listed in this application that I recommend you put in the resume. That way it shows that those areas that seem to be important to MDOT are listed in your resume. And then your North American Industry Classification Code experience, your NAICS code experience. For instance, if you have administrative management, general administrative, the NAICS code 541611 is one of your primary NAICS codes, then you would just need to speak to that experience in your resume. So basically, whatever NAICS code you say that you offer to the government, those are the products or services that you sell, that you have expertise in that particular NAICS code. I'm going to pause right there and see if there's any questions before we go into financials.
We did have one question. Is the ACBE app just for concession stands at the airport, or does it include businesses that may have a service or product that can be sold to the airport in general?
That is a good question. I will take that one for note. But I do believe it's for at the airport, not necessarily selling to the airport. But Marvin, if you can take down the name of that individual, I will research that and get back to you.
Okay, I will do.
Thank you so much. And thank you for that question. So mandatory documents, the year-end financial statements. These documents do not have to be generated by a certified public accountant. It could be a QuickBook download report. It could be an Excel or some other form that you keep track of this information. So it's your balance sheet. It's your profit and loss statement. It could be audited financial statements if applicable. Your articles of organization. These are your Maryland articles of organization. If you started a business in Maryland, this is one of the documents that you would have to have. So you would have to upload this into your MDOT certification application. Now, if you don't have an operating agreement and you're just starting off to even start your business and register with the state of Maryland, you can Google for templates. Don't make this overcomplicated. There are templates out there on the internet. Just adjust and modify them for your business. And then here's just a list of some typical paragraphs, but this is not an exhaustive list of what needs to be in your operating agreement. So you need to have the name and principal place of business. So if that's your home office, or if you're renting a commercial space, or even if you have purchased a space, that's what they're asking for. Your company purpose. What is the purpose of you being in business? What is that product or service that you are selling to the public or to the government? And then the management, again, the management of the business, the day-to-day operations. And then how do you keep track of your record keeping, your books, your tax returns? And then in the event you want to dissolve your company or liquidate, what are those procedures? So those are typical paragraphs, but this, again, this is not an exhaustive list of everything that needs to be in your operating agreement. Profit sharing agreement. So let's pretend that you do not have proper sharing agreement. You just started your business. You're not incorporated, so you're not doing any profit sharing, or you don't have profit sharing for your employees. But here's a sample of the information you can enter into, let's say, a Word document, and then upload it. So you would need, again, the name and principal place of your business, the type of application that you're applying for. So whether it's MBE, DBE, SBE, or ACDBE, or all of the above, your application number. And then again, if this document don't apply to you, you would just say, this does not apply to your company. Sign and date it, and then upload it. Now, there is another whole screen of documents, and this is the if applicable. So if they apply to your business, you would upload it. Now, here's what that screen looks like. As you can see over here on the right, where it says mark as not applicable. So you would go through this list, check off the documents that do not apply to your business. And then down here at the bottom where it says click the lock in button. On the far right of the system, it will mark the document as not applicable. And so when you go back to look at the status of your application, you will not see that document there because it will not be applicable to your business. When you do that refresh of the screen to see where's the status of your application as far as you uploading your documents and or answering your questions. So that's how you get through this particular screen. If in the event you don't click that lock-in button, then all these documents will apply and you will need to upload them. So just keep that in mind. Check off the boxes, check off the documents that don't apply, and then click the lock-in button. I'm going to pause right there and see if there's any questions. All right, moving along. So going through that list of if applicable documents, so your licenses, your license renewal forms, and your permits. A license, again, what they're talking about is trade license, plumbers, electricians, those type of licenses, if you have any renewals, or if you even have permits to have those licenses. And then quarterly state unemployment tax wage report. If you're just starting out, more than likely you do not have a quarterly state unemployment tax wage report. So you would check the box that doesn't apply to you. And then if you've ever applied for MDOT certification and you have been denied or decertified, you would include that. But if it doesn't apply to you, you would check that box and it will be eliminated from your application. So this screen shows the question and answers that came from section 4 that I covered in part 1, where it talks about inventory. This is where you would upload those applicable documents. For example, when it talks about your equipment and vehicle, they're not asking for your personal owned vehicles, only list company vehicles, such as if you have a bread truck or a tow truck, those types of vehicles are what they're looking for here. And then the office space. If you purchased or lease office space, they're looking for that agreement that you have that space. And then storage space, for example, if you have a warehouse, those is what you would list here on this particular page of the application. Now, in session 1, I covered control, licenses, and contracts. Now, this is where you would actually upload those contracts. If you missed the part 1, or if you don't recall for part 1, I went through basically it asks you questions. This particular part 2 is about uploading those documents to correspond to those questions that you answered in the first half. Now, here's some additional, if applicable, documents. If they don't apply, you just check that box, lock it in, and then they will go away as far as on your application. My recommendation, again, this is my recommendation, less is better. So for instance, if you do have a business plan or you have meeting minutes, it's an if applicable, or it's not a mandatory document. So if you want them to review it and scrutinize it, upload it, but if not, leave it out. That's just my recommendation. But if you do upload one, you want to make sure that the information that's in your business plan matches your organizational structure, your management team. If you have an org chart listed in your business plan, you want to make sure that when you said, here's who runs your organization, that those things match. So my point is, since this is if applicable document, you don't have to upload it to get your application through. Same thing with board meetings. They're asking for board meetings, not necessarily your every day or every week staff meetings. If you have any joint venture agreements for your ACDBE applications, you would upload those if they don't apply. So after you submit your application, expect some follow-on questions. Don't be alarmed. These are just questions to get clarification. For example, when I applied, one of the follow-on questions that I was asked is, I listed NAICS codes and what my services were, and they just wanted to ask, where did I get that experience? So if you say you're a plumber or electrician, it wants to know, where did you get that experience to say that those are the services you want to offer? And basically, it was just a separate Word document. I answered their questions. I put my application number on there along with my name, date, and signature, and the name of the company, and uploaded that into the application. So after you have answered all the questions that we had talked about in part 1, and you uploaded the documents that we talked about here today, you are now ready to sign and submit your application. As you can see, all the sections and documentations have been answered and or uploaded, and that's why the screen is green. So once you refresh your screen, you'll see that these green check marks under the receipt and processing section that indicate that your application has been received and under review. So once you hit the submit button, your application then begins to review. Now, just a quick reminder, there is no cost to apply for certification, and it's going to take about 4 months for your application to go through the review process. Now, before I get into the key takeaways and conclusion, are there any questions?
No additional questions.
All right, let's wrap it up. Again, can't stress enough that this application is free. You do not have to pay anyone to get your application through Maryland Department of Transportation certification. As I talked about in part 1, consider completing a uniform certification application. That is where you apply for instance, your MBE, DBE, and SBE all under one application versus a separate application for each one. It's a 4-step process. It's you uploading your application, MDOT doing a review of your application, MDOT verifying your eligibility, and then MDOT making a determination on your application. Now, the required information and documents, again, those will be marked by red, which means you must answer that question and upload those documents. The personal net worth that was listed in section 4, majority owner information, keep in mind the number that you put in when you answer the question has to match the number that's on your personal net worth form that you get notarized. Now, I recommend that you keep a copy of your application, let's say on your desktop, just in case there's a question that they asked, you'll have readily accessible information and documentation if you had to go back and readdress the question on your application. So my suggestion is, before you take on employees or have a lot of revenue, I would recommend that you apply for your certification while you're just starting out. I say that because there's less documentation to complete. If you wait till you're already 10 years in business, you're going to have to pull together those 5 years of business tax returns. So if you do it now where you're still brand new or only have a year or two and maybe 1 or 2 employees, if that, less documentation to get through your application. As Marvin mentioned at the beginning of this workshop, that they are available if you needed one-on-one coaching. You would go through the Maryland Capital Enterprise Women Business Center. So I want to thank you today for your attention for part 2 of the MDOT Certification Application Workshop. This is for Maryland and for the set-asides that Maryland offer. If you're interested in federal opportunities, you have to be registered in the system for award management. The Women Business Center is hosting a sam.gov workshop on the 22nd of February at 12 o'clock. You can go to their website and you can sign up for it. Or you can connect with me on LinkedIn because I will be posting that webinar to my LinkedIn page. Here's my information, contact information here on this screen. And again, I want to thank the Maryland Capital Enterprise for hosting this platform. Also, thank you, participants, for joining us today. With that, I will see if there's any final questions.
Let's see. There is one additional question. Will the uniform application form be the right course if you are only applying for the MBE and SBE?
Yes, then just do MBE and SBE. Otherwise, you'll be doing an application for each one of those. So you'll just be duplicating the information when you could just do one application for both of those certifications.
Anybody have any other questions? Juliet, you want to?
Yes, actually, it's just a simple question. The resume you're talking about, does that include, like some of us has already had resume, or we need to create another resume for the business?
So what I would recommend is if you already have a resume, but your job that's on top, like your present job, if you're the business owner, it needs to talk about you being the business owner and you provide the strategic direction and the management of the company. So you just need to perhaps revise your current resume to show that you're now the business owner and what your responsibilities are.
Anybody else? Anyway, well, that should do it. And thank you, Rosalind, for another very informative session. And hopefully everybody will tune into some of the other webinars that we have here and ones that you host with us. And with that, we'll call this the last chance for questions. Anybody have any questions? Okay, well, thanks, everybody. Thank you, Rosalind, again.
Thank you, Marvin. I appreciate it.
Was that a question, anybody? No?
I was wondering, can we get those slides?
The slides are not available, but the recording is available on Maryland Capital Enterprise Women Business Center website.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, and I will be sending out the recording. It'll probably be in the morning, and that will give you the link to all of our webinars that we have in our library. So,
one more question, please.
Sure.
With respect to the SBE, is there? I know you didn't discuss that today, but is the information, or is there any particular difference in terms of what you would advise or the information required for the SBE?
Yes, if you go back and look at the part 1, there's a difference in the personal net worth between MBE, DBE, and SBE.
Okay,
Okay,
all right. Thank you. Thanks very much.
you're welcome.
Okay, well, thanks, everybody, and hope to see you on some of our other upcoming events.
Have a good week, Marvin. Thank you.
You too, thanks.